I've just returned after 2 weeks in Israel. I had a chance to report from the front lines of the Gaza Strip and different other places that were among the worst affected on October the 7th. One of the persons on the front lines of Israel's battle to convince the world and to remind the world not to forget what happened on October the 7th is Israel's ambassador to India. And he joins me now here for an exclusive interview on India Today. Ambassador Naor, Gilon, thank you very much for speaking to India Today. It's been nearly a month, sir, since the attack. What has this month been like? I want to ask you that first straight out.
Yeah, first of all, there are two levels. There is the professional and the personal one. What transpired on October 7 in Israel is something unprecedented. So we had terrible bus bombings where body parts were there, but this cruelty of human beings, human animals, is something that we never saw. So there is a shock, but also the numbers, the figures. I mean, 1,400 people dead. It's like if you compare to India, it would be like in these 10 hours, 8 hours, 12 hours, like more than 2 lakh people were murdered. That's the number. So everyone knows someone, and the shock of the abduction, the atrocities that were done, rape and decapitating and whatnot, but also the people who were abducted, kidnapped. We have the pictures here around us. And, it's a big shock. So it goes from the fact that in the embassy we had 2 people who first cousins were killed in the party, and one in the party, one in the military, in the first wave. And everyone knows friends and the other side of it becomes the personal one. Because my wife is in Israel now visiting to be with my 4 kids and my 5 grandchildren to help them. My youngest daughter is in military service. One of my sons was recruited into reserves. So, it's also on the personal level when I know that they run to the shelter every 3-4 times a day. They live around Tel Aviv area. 3-4 times a day they might be running to the shelter. My father lives in Rishon, which is not far, Rishon LeZion, not far from Tel Aviv, much targeted. He's almost 90, 89. And, he has to run to the shelter. My in-laws, it's a very, very busy, very emotional, but we are strong.
The sense I got, and I completely agree with you, Ambassador, that virtually everyone we spoke to in our 2 weeks in Israel, had a personal story to tell, either one of loss or one of suffering, or knowing someone who was directly affected or someone who was recruited into the reserves. 5 days before I left from Israel, the ground operation, the highly anticipated ground operation began, sir. It's a very deliberate, slow-moving ground operation, at least from our perspective, because we've seen how things have turned out before. From your perspective, and I'll come to the diplomatic aspects a little later, I just wanted to get the operational parts talked about first. How do you assess how that's going? Because it's the defense minister of Israel has said it's going to be a long and hard battle.
First of all, the target that we're put, people see this, what happened, another skirmish between Israel and Hamas. No. What happened is that on the October 6th, Friday evening, we went to sleep, and we had Hamas as our neighbor, and we woke up Saturday morning after the attacks when we have ISIS as the neighbor. And where we thought that probably the main failure, I think, of the conceptual failure of Israel was to try and see Hamas as a reasonable, responsible, to a certain extent, player. So we thought, our thinking was that with the dual containment, if you do the military deterrence, the fear that we will go in and like happening now, and improve their lives, we will give them enough incentives not to deal with us. That was the thinking, and that's why we failed. That once this failed, because we didn't understand that they are at the end of the day, the ideology is much stronger than caring to their population or showing the population they can supply them with better lives, because life was getting better. We allowed tens of thousands every day to go to work in Israel. This brought a lot of money, a lot of materials and products and everything went in. Look how the Gaza Strip was before that. I mean, cars and equipment and everything was there. So you understand that it was a total failure, and that brings, for the first time, the cabinet put as a directive to eliminate the regime of Hamas in Gaza and to eliminate capabilities to reenact such actions and to bring back the hostages, which is the other So it's going to be long because the definition of the task is very big. Because when you have ISIS, like the Americans did in Iraq and other places, when you have ISIS, the only way to eradicate, you cannot eradicate the ideology. It's in the hearts or in the minds of people. You can either catch them, capture them, jail them, kill them, or make them run away. That's what happened also with Americans. And this is a very hard task, especially when the Hamas is hiding behind human shields. Now we have double. In the past, always they had human shields, their own population. And when Israel, in the 3 weeks, more or less, before the ground operation, since the October 7, we tried to do any effort to advise the population in the north, because we knew we were coming in the north. So we gave them a warning also to Hamas to know that we will start in the north. It's a little bit risky, but we did it in order to help population. And we told them, go south, go south. Hamas was threatening them not to go south. And some did, many stayed, and now we are in a war where we have civilian population as human shields and also the kidnapped as human shields. So it's very slow because it would be very easy to bomb everything from the air and, you know, regardless of the casualties. But if you want to do a chirurgical thing that you kill as little as possible bystanders, as many as possible terrorists, it has to be done by ground, and they are underground in the tunnels anyhow. So they are hiding under the population now, and this is very complicated, and that's why the target that was put is very ambitious or very deep, and in order to prevent casualties or to minimize casualties, you have to go very slowly and do it very carefully.
It is happening very slowly, and as you said, perhaps the principal reason for that is the fact that there are over 220 hostages still inside. At least in public, nobody knows where they are. I'm sure the Israeli intelligence has an idea of where some of those hostages may be. But over nearly a month, Ambassador, since they were kidnapped, 4 were released, 1 young corporal, lady soldier was rescued, but 220 is an enormous figure, to be kept captive for so long. How is that going? Can you throw any light on how that's going? Because when I was in Israel, apart from the operations on the ground, we do hear, unverified bits of information about negotiations, about mediations happening in other countries. Can you give us a realistic picture of how that's being handled, sir?
Again, this is part of the emotional, because you have 30 kids. You have babies 9, 10 months old, a few babies. You have people who are 85 years old, Holocaust survivors, some of them. So it's a very emotional. Everyone knows someone, by the way, from many nationalities, many, more than 30 nationalities there. So it's a big, it's a very complex issue to deal with. How will it go? I think no one knows. We gave probably a chance. One of the reasons we waited when the ground offensive is to give a chance for some kind of a deal. But we believe that without ground pressure, Hamas will not be, only when they feel, the leadership feels threat. The leadership in Gaza, because we know that a huge part of the leadership is living in comfort in Qatar or in Turkey, in Istanbul, and they couldn't care less about what's happening to the people. They live very luxurious life. But the leadership there, if they will feel threatened, the chances that they will be ready to do some kind of a deal will be bigger. And of course, people are telling us, going ground, they can use them as human shield. You can, when you have people in the hands of ISIS, they are by definition at risk. And it's a very emotional thing, because only from one kibbutz, there, like third of the kibbutz is there in Gaza, dead or in Gaza.
I was there at that kibbutz called Niroz. Yes.
Niroz, it's, for them, it's, wow, think of it. Third of the kibbutz either dead or already in Gaza, held there. So it's terrible. It's a very emotional, but we have no alternative but to go full force and get rid of Hamas. And on the way, hoping that we are able, together with international pressure also, to find some kind of a deal to take out the civilians held hostage.
Okay, so this is obviously a story in motion, and the kibbutz that the ambassador was talking about, we reported from there. We did a full ground report where of the 400 residents of that kibbutz, 100 were either killed or taken hostage. So a third of all those hostages are from just one tiny little commune near the Gaza Strip. You talked about, Ambassador, countries like Qatar and others, and I'll come to Iran in a bit, who are playing mediators. These are also countries that, provide accommodation to the chairman of Hamas. I want to know how Israel regards this, because unlike Iran, Qatar has relations with Israel. There are diplomatic relations with Israel, which becomes very, very complicated at a time like this. Define for us, at a time when Israel says only the complete decimation of Hamas can be the acceptable end game to this action right now. What about those sitting in places outside Israel, sir, and outside Gaza?
So Qatar, we don't have relations. I mean, we have connections to Qatar.
Yes.
We negotiate. We used to have their commercial office in the past, closed past times, but we have connections to Qatar. Unfortunately, you see the Muslim Brotherhood nature of the countries. These are the countries who are some of the support assistance that they give Hamas was done with okay from Israel for humanitarian and salaries and stuff like that. And they are there. They are the ones who can negotiate because they are the ones who have some leverage over Hamas. That's the very simple fact of the matter. Unfortunately, I mean, I see in Qatar, one of the biggest problems of Qatar is the fact that Al Jazeera is there for so many 20-odd years, poisoning more and more generations of Muslims around the world. In their Arabic language, they are really a tool of poisoning. A lot of the problems we have now and we will see in the future around the world are instigated in one way or another by Al Jazeera. So it's a big problem, but now you go to the people who have leverage. Turkey has, they host some leaders, so they have some leverage over them. Qatar is the same. You do business with the people you can because it's very important to release the hostages.
Could Iran become more directly involved in your view, Ambassador? I know this is a story where calculations have gone straight out of the window because of the nature of what's happening. But you've got what the media is calling the Triple H, the Hamas, the Hezbollah, the Houthis, all attacking you from different areas, almost encircling you. There is activity in the West Bank as well. What, in your view, is Iran's role? Do you think this could become a more direct kind of confrontation of the kind that even the United States is preparing for?
So I think that the Americans understood immediately that this is not a regular skirmish. The fact that they sent immediately carriers to Eastern Mediterranean and a ship also to the Red Sea, which helped also intercept rockets and different flying objects, different kinds by the Houthis towards Israel, they all understand that it's a different game, and the Americans, I think, came there and also made a clear message, a warning to Iran and Hezbollah not to interfere. We are de facto in a proxy war with Iran. Okay, we are not in a direct war, but all the three bodies, the three H's that you mentioned, Hezbollah being a flesh of the Revolutionary Guards, that's how Nasrallah defines himself, but also equipped, everything is like in the Iranian army, de facto. You have Houthis who are also Shiites, these two are Shiites. Hezbollah in Lebanon, Houthis in Yemen, also Shiites, very close to Iran, equipment, training, financing, everything. Hamas, Sunnis, but still one of the arms. And you can add, by the way, that some militias from Iraq, Syria, Shiite militias are also trying to interact with us one way or another. So you understand that we are already encircled by many arms, military arms of Iran. I don't think that Iran has an interest in going for a full war because it will be bigger. It will not about Israel. They are almost 1,000 kilometers away from us, so it's not that they have the abilities. And if they saw that their capabilities like surface-to-surface rockets, UAVs, and cruise missiles were all intercepted by American and Israeli systems. So they shot, I don't know, maybe 30 different things at us, and nothing came in. And these are the capabilities of Iran. And we have superior capabilities to Iran. So this, I think, is a warning thing for them. And today, everyone is waiting to listen to Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, who is sending a speech. He loves these dramatic events. I hope we are de facto, again, on the border. We are with a mini war with also Hezbollah by now. We don't want it to become a full-scale war. And I hope they don't make the mistake of making it a full-scale war. We are able to fight in these two fronts, in Hamas, Gaza, and Hezbollah, Lebanon. The end game, the end of the war, there will be a price for Israel to pay. We pay in every war prices, but I think that Iran will lose both its military arms in the region, the ability to so I hope the Iranians understand that. I hope Hezbollah understands that. Hamas, it's a different story. They are going to learn the hard way anyhow.
As far as the last month is concerned, and I spent 2 weeks there reporting from different parts of Israel, Ambassador. Video footage of October the 7th. I understand that you had a screening here at the embassy in Delhi as well. I attended the second screening that was put forward for international journalists in Israel. Absolutely horrific. Absolutely horrific, indescribable. And I think there's a good reason why it wasn't released to the public, because this was truly horrifying stuff. There was, audio clips of phone calls made by the terrorists back to their families, and many other things that were put out. The question I put to you,
for me, by the way, that's most sensitive. The two children,
the two boys
seeing their father,
and the blood splattered on them after the father is shot.
The father is killed in front of them, and one of the boys, maybe 6, 7, 8 years old, is shouting, "Why did I stay alive? I wanted to die with my father. I should have died. I wanted to die." So a boy at that age shouldn't even see that and think in this way. So they were terrible. I would hope not to have to see it again, but this was.
My question to you on Israel's decision, and I understand it was a difficult decision to put out that footage, and it may even be shown in the United Nations, is does Israel feel like it is having to remind the world about what happened on October the 7th, but you have this overpowering narrative from abroad saying, no, this is Israel's fault, you have to go back into history, and Israel feels, why are we sitting here having to remind the world about what happened on October the 7th?
Yeah, Israel was always, people always say that Israel is treated favorably. Israel is always treated in a discriminative way. And go to the UN, okay? In the UN during the Cold War, and we are going back to Cold War, there is an automatic majority of the non-aligned movement at the time of the Cold War, the Arab group part of it. They had like 2/3 majority almost in the UN for anything. So we were always, cornered in the UN, and that was always the situation. And I think in general in the world, there is a lot of people who are misinformed, and they think that the underdog here are the Palestinians. They don't see the larger map of 7 million Jews, more or less, living in a very, very, very small country. If you look at the map of the Middle East and you see West Asia for you, you see the number of Muslim countries, the quantity of people, close to 1 billion people around us, hundreds of millions, let's say, around us, of Muslims, tiny country. This is the whole mess that we are speaking of, something that Israel goes into India 150 times. It's ununderstandable. And of course, after the horrific attack, people could not go against Israel. It was not politically correct. So what did they do? Some did not say anything, and others condemned the attack in a watered way and tried to give a context. So to understand why, to the logic of these criminals to rape women and behead people, they have to, the suffering, the political suffering, which is totally rubbish. It's connected to no reality. It's not about the Palestinians. Hamas is not representing the Palestinians. It's a jihadi organization which couldn't care less about its own population. Nothing. They have this idea of jihad, which is, you go to the covenant of Hamas, they call for the destruction of Israel. When people, by the way, around the world say from the river to the sea, it means to have a Palestinian state instead of Israel. On Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, it's all the area of Israel. So what happened is that when there was the first instance for these people who felt uncomfortable to criticize Israel as they are used to many, many years, they waited for the hospital thing. And of course, Hamas immediately said the hospital was done by Israel, and 471 people died. 5 minutes after the bomb, 471 bodies were counted.
And it was reported by
everyone. It's also part of our problem, because our IDF spokesman, who was very fast, like 4 hours, they will not say anything without checking. The first notion was we didn't have any aircraft in the region. We didn't shoot any artillery to that region. So we thought it's not us. But we want to be sure. So we came out with the footage and with a voice recording of two terrorists speaking. It took us 3-4 hours. It was enough to lose that. But even when now people understand that it is a misfiring rocket of Islamic Jihad, by the way, they fired so far about 9,000 rockets. 20% of the rockets that they shoot are misfired, more or less. This is the ratio. So we are close to 2,000 rockets that fell inside and probably also killed people. This instance was famous, but there are probably less famous cases. So, you know, the world immediately shifted. They're back to where they feel comfortable. So now we are back into the situation where, and there was a lot of fake news. This is not right. That's not right. The reason we are not coming out with the videos is that in Jewish tradition, we believe in the sacredcy of the dead. Of, you know, you have to keep the respect of the dead. You cannot, we don't believe in playing these games of showing body parts, and it's not us. And people started with fake news. No, people were not killed. It's fake news. I see it also here.
Very much here in India as well.
Very much in India, and people think it's legitimate to give Abu Marzouk or other leaders of Hamas the right to appear here. And by the way, Khalid Mashal, when he went to Kerala to speak, or he didn't go, video. When he spoke in the video, he called to prepare for jihad in Israel, but prepare for jihad is not a good thing. Go out to the streets and the squares and demonstrate against Israel. So in India, calling the people, finance the resistance, finance Hamas. So all of that was done here. And that's why, by the way, we called also for India to include Hamas in the list of terror organizations.
I was going to ask you about that. About your request, your campaign to get India to ban Hamas, which would seem like a logical thing to do. Because India and Israel have many commonalities when they face this kind of terrorism. How is that going? Can you update us on that? Is India receptive to that idea? And also, what kind of role do you see India playing in this entire affair?
So, first of all, it's important because legally then you cannot do all the things that Khalid Mashal, for example, did, and others will not host them. Like I would never think, God forbid, if Israel ever hosted the Lashkar Taiba people to explain what was the logic behind the Mumbai attack, why they chose the Taj Mahal, the hotel, and that target and the Chabad. We are not there, you know. We are not. We don't think that terrorists should get any opportunity to express their sick views. And India, we gave India the information we have about the history of Hamas. Terror actions they did over the years. It's a decision of India. Look, I cannot go, and I'm not going to impose on India. I think that India, one of the things, the reaction, the formal reaction here was very swift and strong. Why? And Prime Minister Modi, the same afternoon when the picture was not clear yet on the magnitude of the disaster, already came out with the tweets, the deploration. And so, you know, India is very strong on terror. India is a victim of terror. India is a fighter of terror. So I think coming from India as a close friend of Israel and everything, it gives a lot of, I think, a lot of moral ground and knowledge for India. And I think, I would hope that Hamas will be declared as a terror organization here.
I hope to see that happen, and we also hope for peace. We wish you well, Ambassador, and thank you for sharing your personal side of how you relate to what's happening far away in your homeland. Let's hope that this crisis gets resolved quickly, it doesn't escalate further, because I don't think anybody wants that. This is most definitely a war that has been imposed on Israel, and we will continue to report what happens go forward. Thank you very much for speaking to India today. Thank you so much. Thank you.